Hello, welcome everyone to the 45th session of Current Affairs 2020 Economy and Banking Concepts. Let us start with the first question. Name the e-learning platform recently announced by Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman for digital education that would include online teaching, TV channels, radio, and podcasts. Now, this is you can easily understand that because of this COVID-19, the schools and colleges, everything are closed, and the time period when they are going to start once again is not defined. So, to encounter this challenge, state government, colleges, and even the central government are coming up with different plans, different platforms to facilitate the learning process to go on. And to do that, the government of India has launched PM E-Vidya platform, Prime Minister E-Vidya platform to for improvising this digital education that would include online teaching, TV channels, radio, and podcasts. So, answer for this question is option number 3, PM Vidya, E Vidya. Let us go to the next question. So, the next question says, which among the following became the first state to grant industry status to sports? Now, in India, however, sports is one of the biggest industry. You are aware of IPL and cricket, which is actually one of the biggest industry in the country. However, from the government perspective, sports has never considered as an industry. Mizoram is the answer, being the first state in the entire nation which has considered sports as an industry. You can easily understand the whole idea of considering sports as an industry is to infuse more private capital and also to have more commercial regulation on this particular sector. And as long as Mizoram is concerned, there are a lot of players, particularly in football, who represents the top level of Indian football fraternity. Presently, if you look at almost 100 of Mizo players are playing the I League, the most prominent league of Indian football. And that is one of the reason why Mizoram government has taken this initiative. Just to add with this, FIFA, as we know, has its own training organization based in Mizoram. So even clubs like Arsenal and other European clubs are also having some tie-ups with some of the clubs in Mizoram. The sports minister Robert Roete and the CMS Joram Thanga Mizo National Front. Aizawl Football Club, Aizawl FC is a ex-I League champion. You can imagine this is a very small state located in northeast Mizoram, related to the rest of the states like Maharashtra, Kerala, Punjab, West Bengal, Chennai, who have a good background of football, but just being from a very small state and a very small population, being I League champion is quite a challenging issue. So you can understand the kind of importance and kind of success Mizoram has achieved in terms of sports and particularly into football. So the answer for this question is Mizoram, and CM Chief Minister is Zoram Thanga. Mizo National Front is the name of the party. Let's move to the next question. Also, just to recall you, Mizoram is also one of the state in the country which is highest in terms of literacy rate. If you look at the literacy rate as per the census 2011, and in fact even the previous census also, if you look at Kerala and Mizoram are the two states which almost all the time are the top two in terms of literacy in our country. Under the fifth tranche of a stimulus package, what is the additional fund allocated for MG and REGA to provide employment boost in the country? Now, During budget, there was some allocation, and which is the regular allocation for MD and Rega, and that allocation was 61,500 crores. But as the COVID-19 pandemic took place, a lot of people, the daily laborers, they are losing their jobs, and the rural people are in very much in scarcity of the cash liquidity. So to ensure that a sufficient amount of cash are available with these rural people, and also with other sectors of the economy, the government of India introduced this Atmanirbhar package. Now, as a part of this Atmanirbhar package, which has been later on detailed by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in five trenches. And the fifth trench, this allocation has been given. The extra allocation is 40,000 crores. Understand, there's a budget allocation. The budget estimate for MG and Rega was 61,500 crores. This 40,000 crores is on and above this 61,500 crores, which is allocated for MG and Rega. Now, as long as this Atmanirbhar package is concerned, it is like a mini budget. I would strongly recommend that you should consider this separately and study different allocations made under this particular package. Most importantly, the initiative takes towards the loans and the credit facility for MSME, or the term repo initiative by RBI, or maybe extending the MSF limit from 2% to 3% up to June. So these are some of the initiatives taken by Government of India as well as RBI to ensure that sufficient amount of liquidity is available in the system. So this has to be studied with very minute importance, and it has to be dealt separately. Let's look at the next question. So answer for this question is option number 2, 40,000 crores. Three-time Olympic gold medalist Balbir Singh Balbir Singh Senior passed away recently. He was associated with. Now, this question can be actually easily guessed. If you look at 3 times Olympic gold medalist, and that too from India, there's only one sports is there in India where 3 times India has achieved gold, and the answer for this is hockey. So answer for this question is hockey. Balbir Singh Senior passed away recently. So answer is hockey. Let us move to the next question. For which bank has the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India IRDAI approved its proposal to continue its 30% holding in India First Life Insurance? Now, IRDAI, as you know, like in banking sector, the regulator is RBI. For capital market, the regulator is SEBI. Similarly, for insurance sector, the regulator is IRDAI, Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India, which is founded in 1999, and the present chairperson is Subhash Chandra Khuntia. Present chairperson is Subhash Chandra Khuntia, and headquarters is in Hyderabad. Now, earlier there were only limited number of insurance companies in India. Before 1991, it was only life insurance company, that is LIC, was most prominent, and most of the other were general insurance company. Wherein after 1991, when foreign direct investment FDI were allowed in India, and private institutions or organizations also were allowed to get license for insurance business, so there had a requirement of a separate regulator, a specialized and autonomous regulator, and that's how the formation of IRDAI took place. The chairman Subhash Chandra Khuntia, very important in the perspective of bank exam. The headquarters is Hyderabad. This type of question we come across. Now, at present, or if you look at even past also, it is not only that insurance company which sell insurances, even the banks also sell insurances, where the term is called bank plus insurance, which is called bank assurance. So many of you must have come across this particular word, bank assurance. Now please understand, A bank which is selling an insurance, it is not a core banking activity. It is not a core or general banking activity. It comes under a para banking activity. Now those para banking activities are not directly regulated, or the permissions or the licenses are not under RBI. There are a number of para banking activities, like for example a bank is providing demat account facility or services. So then SEBI has to give the permission. Similarly, when it comes to insurance business, where bank is used as a channel for selling the insurance, this has to be regulated by IRDAI. Second part. Now, when a bank performs an insurance business, it has to perform either by forming a separate department or by forming a separate entity. Like for example, if you look at SBI, they have formed a separate company called SBI Life. So it's a different company where the majority stakeholder is obviously SBI. Similarly, ICICI has got different ICICI Prudential, ICICI, then Lombard. So there are one for general insurance and the other is for life insurance. So if you look at this type of operations are regulated by IRDAI. Now, if you look at the options, this is again, if you look at all these 5 banks are presently existing. None of them got merged. In fact, like for example, Allahabad Bank got merged with Indian Bank. Indian Overseas Bank is standalone bank. It neither got merged or no other bank got merged with this one. So Union Bank of India is also existing, Bank of Baroda, Punjab National Bank, all these 5 banks are existing. The answer for this question is Union Bank of India. So they are holding a 30% stake in this company, India First Life Insurance. Okay, answer is Union Bank of India, option number 3. Let us move to the next question. Which among the following has recently been awarded Golden Leaf Award at the TAP Expo 2019 event in Amsterdam, Netherlands? Now, if you look at to this particular question, the answer is Tobacco Board of India. The Tobacco Board of India, based out of Guntur. This is the second time they got this award, and mostly due to the initiatives they have taken for sustainable and green developments and related activities. The answer is Tobacco Board of India. Executive Director Mrs. K. Sunita. Executive Director of Tobacco Board of India is Mrs. K. Sunita. Got this award in Amsterdam, Netherlands on behalf of Tobacco Board of India. Okay, let us move to the next question. India's first elephant memorial has been recently inaugurated in. Now, this is a unique step in the era of globalization and the expansion the human beings are making. We know that wildlife is in danger, and to ensure that sufficient amount of awareness are created among the common people, this initiative has been taken by one of the NGO. The place is Mathura. There it's a memorial of the elephants which lost their life due to poaching or maybe some other human activity or disasters. And the answer for this one is Mathura. It's almost like 20 kilometers away from Agra, where this memorial has been inaugurated. Let us move to the next question. Which among the following cities has recently hosted the 6th World Congress on Rural and Agricultural Finance, WCRAF? Quite an important question. As long as the bank exams are concerned. World Congress on Rural and Agricultural Finance. This is the 6th such Congress taking place. The answer is New Delhi. The answer for this question is New Delhi. Now, this was held in New Delhi. The Congress is co-hosted by NABARD along with Asia Pacific Rural and Agricultural Credit Association. Asia Pacific Rural and Agricultural Credit Association and Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. You need not write it down, it will be there in the e-book format, you can always take it down from there. But what you should definitely take it down, recently the chairman of NABARD has been changed. Earlier, Mr. Harsh Kumar Vanwala, who was the chairman of NABARD, now Govinda Rajulu Chintala has been appointed as the new chairman of NABARD. You must write it down. Very important question as long as bank exam is concerned. Govinda Rajulu Chintala is the new chairman of NABARD. Okay, and the answer for this question is New Delhi. So please take it down. Govinda Rajulu Chintala, the new chairman of NABARD. Remember the name of Govinda, film actor. So it would help you to recall the answer in the exam hall. Let us move to the next question. Name the platform that was recently launched by the National Cyber Security Coordinators Office in partnership with Data Security Council DSCI of India, that lists every technology-based entity in the country ranging from IT industry, startups, academia to research. Now, this is actually launched in 2019 and it was initially announced by Government of India that they are going to have some centralized database. You can say it's like a repository, REPOSITORI, repository. The answer for this particular platform or the repository is called Tech Sagar, Indian Cyber Tech Capability. So it's like a database where you can see all the companies which are into the development of IT industry or maybe information technology related technologies and other details also. For example, somebody wants to search for where can I access blockchain technology or data science or maybe some other technologies are there. You can get it from one single point database, which is TechSagar. This word repository is also applicable in case of insurance repository. And you must have also heard of another word called depositories, Indian depository. In one of our previous session, we talked about depositories in case of ADR, DR depositories, where it is related with maybe derivatives or similar type of activities. Now, what is a repository? So repository, particularly in case of let's say insurance repository, is an organization which gains or attains their license from IRDA, and they are responsible to keep a digital locker with them where they store the digital copy of insurance made by the customers. See what happens. There are insurances like life insurances, where when we make a life insurance from a company like LIC or any other life insurance company, they will give us a paper, a hard copy of the insurance policy, which we can keep it with us. But there are a lot of other insurance, like for example travel insurance. When we travel by train or we travel by flight, there are some travel insurances we make, and that is done by paying a very small amount of premium, for which printing a document and then delivering it to the beneficiary or the customer is quite difficult. And the time frame also does not support it. I'm sure many of you, while booking a ticket of train or flight, you have seen, would you like to choose a travel insurance? Now, suppose I chose a travel insurance and I paid some 5 rupees or 10 rupees or maybe 35 rupees for that travel insurance. Now, where the insurance document will be stored, or who is going to keep that insurance document? So those insurance documents are stored with an insurance repository in digital form, DMAT form. So, and these insurance depositories are availing their license from IRDA. In case of share market, the term is depository, not repository. Depository. That means these are again companies who get license from SEBI to keep our shares in digital format. So individually XYZ person have a locker in that depository where his or her shares are kept, and when he sells that share, that shares from his locker get shifted to some other locker. So that is how this depositories work. So it's like a digital go down, you can say they are like a digital go down, a stock point. Okay, so answer for this particular question is TechSagar. The logo is like this. You can see the website, and it's a very rich data source. Let's move to the next question. Who among the following persons has recently been appointed CEO of UIDAI, Unique Identification Authority of India? If you recall, Nandan Nilekani, the first CEO of UIDAI, who actually developed this particular Aadhaar identity and spread it across the country to ensure that this Aadhaar identification and Aadhaar cards are available with and the technology behind this Aadhaar number. Now, at present, the CEO of Unique Identification Authority of India is option number 4, Mr. Pankaj Kumar. Mr. Pankaj Kumar is the present CEO of Unique Identification Authority of India. Option number 4, Mr. Pankaj Kumar. Let us look at the rest of the names are also very, very important. Mr. Tuhin Kumar Pandey is the Disinvestment Secretary. Important in terms of bank exam is concerned. If you know that the government of India announced its disinvestment targets, in step by step it is going to disinvest and privatize Air India, then Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited, for which they have also asked for some bid. Now, who is going to look after this particular disinvestments? Those who are not aware of what is disinvestment, let me give in one sentence. Disinvestment is the process of selling shares of PSUs. For example, ONGC, IOCL, BPCL, SBI, these are our PSUs. That means majority of the stake and the management both are with government. Now, if the government is going to sell some stake out of it, it is going to get some fund. It is going to sell it maybe in the share market. In return, it is going to get some capital. This process is disinvestment, and the money generated from this process is called disinvestment proceed. Every year, Government of India makes some plan of disinvestment proceed. How much revenue they are going to generate through disinvestment. They sometimes become successful to generate that amount, and sometimes they may not, and most of the time they are not able to generate that of the money because there are a lot of constraints are there. Economic condition, protest, number of issues are there. We have heard of that the employees of BSNL are protesting, or the bank employees are protesting against privatization or disinvestment of the banks. So these are some of the reasons, but in today's context, disinvestment and privatization is very important. A simple difference between disinvestment and privatization could be, in case of disinvestment, government sell the share but management still remains with the government, whereas in privatization, government is no more a majority stakeholder. Even the management is also no more with the government. It is passed on to some private organization, that is privatization. What the present government is trying to do with Air India and BPCL is privatization. They are not only trying to sell the stake, they are also trying to give away the management responsibility to some private party. Now, this DIPAM, Department of Investment and Public Asset Management, is a body, as a department under Ministry of Finance. Very important. The head of DIPAM is again Tuhin Kumar Pandey, that means the executive head, who is also the Disinvestment Secretary to the Ministry of Finance. Advise union government in the matters of financial restructuring of PSUs. That means if the PSUs are looking for some funds, they want to issue some bonds, they want to raise fund from the debt market. So those things are consulted with DIPAM, and then they recommend the government. And also attracting investment through capital market. The full form is DIPAM is important. Remember, Tuhin Kumar Pandey is the Disinvestment Secretary. I am putting lot of emphasis in this question because there are a number of names which are very important in today's context. Brajraj Sharma, his tenure as the chairman of SSC has been extended for another 2 years. He was the present chairman, he was retired, and his tenure has been extended for another 2 years. Chairman of Staff Selection Commission. So SSC. Sanjeev Nandan Sahai is the Power Secretary. Power Secretary Sanjeev Nandan Sahai, and Pramod Kumar Das, Minority Affairs Secretary. Pramod Kumar Das is Minority Affairs Secretary. So answer for this question is Mr. Pankaj Kumar. Okay, let us move to the next question. Who of the following recently been named Ambassador of Bharat Ki Lakshmi, an initiative by Prime Minister Narendra Modi that aims to honor commendable work done by women across the nation. This is a new scheme where the ambassadors are named for this Bharat Ki Lakshmi. The question is self-explanatory, very important because it's a current affair based question. The answer for this question is, you might have known, many of you, Deepika Padukone and PV Sindhu. Deepika Padukone and PV Sindhu, they are named as the ambassador for Bharat Ki Lakshmi. Let us move to the next question. Which of the following is an UPI based payment interface which allows real-time fund transfer using a single identity like your mobile number or name or virtual payment address? Now, UPI is Unified Payment Interface. Now they are asking which of the following is an UPI based payment interface. Now, what is UPI? Unified Payment Interface. It itself is an interface, but then UPI is the generic name. Remember, UPI is the generic name. What is a generic name? Let me give an example. I'm sure many of you at your home must have used a medicine called Pentocid or Pentob or Pan 40. Now the name of the drug is Pantoprazole. It is the name of the drug, this is the generic name, but the different brands sell it in different name. For example, somebody is selling at Pan 40, some other company is selling at Pentocid, some other company is selling as Pan CD, something like that. Similarly, UPI is the generic name. Now when UPI is launched, actually Government of India made sure that there has to be a common platform for all the people in the country. So then NPCIL, National Payment Corporation of India, launched this BHIM app, BHIM, BHIM, Bharat Interface for Money. I'm sure many of you heard of it. BHIM app stands for Bharat Interface for Money. It's an app, can be availed from Play Store. Now, what is this BHIM? This is just an UPI app. There is no such app called UPI. If you have to perform an UPI transaction, you need to have an app for that. Now that app is BHIM, which is not of a particular bank. It is not provided by any bank. It is provided by NPCI. So if I have a mobile phone, I can download this BHIM app. Then I can link this BHIM app with my bank account. However, later on, banks also develop their own UPI app. So different banks have their own UPI apps, or in their mobile banking app they have include a feature for UPI. Another best example for UPI based app is Google Pay. Whatever transactions we are doing through Google Pay is actually a UPI payment. Amazon Pay, through which we can use an UPI transaction. Now when we make this UPI transactions, we use virtual payment address, or which is known as UPI ID. UPI ID. So what happens? Unlike RTGS, real-time gross settlement, NEFT, National Electronic Fund Transfer, where you need to give at least 3 details to make a payment. For example, when you make an NEFT, you need to give at least the name of the customer, account number and IFS code. So minimum 3 details are required. Whereas when you make an UPI payment through Google Pay or Bhim app, either Aadhaar number, name, or maybe a mobile number itself is sufficient. You can transfer money right only through mobile number, provided his mobile number must be linked with one of the UPI app. Need not be Bhim, need not be Google Pay. Any UPI app has to be linked with the beneficiary account number. So RTGS and NEFT transactions cannot be performed based on single identity. Neither they are UPI based platform. NFS stands for National Financial Switch. NFS stands for National Financial Switch, which is a centralized server, centralized platform which connects all the ATMs across the country, may it be private bank, government bank, foreign bank. All the ATMs in the country are connected to a centralized server which is known as NFS, National Financial Switch. Who looks after this NFS? Who is responsible for the operation of NFS? Again, the answer is NPCI, National Payment Corporation of India. Remember, RTGS and NEFT are not monitored by NPCI. NFS and Bhim are, we can say the products offered by NPCI. So answer for this question is Bhim, where in UPI transaction you need only a single identity, where you can use or transact through or send money through UPI ID or even a mobile number. I hope the question is clear. Little tricky. You need to understand this particular keyword, single identity, like your mobile number or virtual payment address. This will help you to understand. The answer should be Bhim. Full form stands for Bharat Interface for Money. Let's move to the next question. Which of the following is not a 24/7 fund transfer facility in India? 24/7 fund transfer means it does not depend on the banking hour. You can perform this type of transaction 365 days, 24/7. It's entirely automated. The answer for this RTGS, is it real-time gross settlement? No. This RTGS can be performed only in some stipulated time period. So which of the following is not a 24/7 fund transfer facility in India? Answer is RTGS. UPI is a 24/7 application. IMPS stands for Immediate Payment Service. IMPS stands for Immediate Payment Service. We have come across, this is not a new one, it started almost in 2011. IMPS can be performed from mobile banking apps of the bank. When UPI can be done from even not from a mobile banking app, but like there are separate apps for UPI like Google Pay, wherein IMPS can be performed only from a mobile banking app of a bank. Now there are two ways IMPS can be performed. Immediate payment service can be performed in two ways. One is using mobile number and MMID. They may ask you this full form MMID. What does MMID stands for? So MMID stands for Mobile Money Identifier. Mobile Money identifier. Now if you look at in the bracket, we have P2P. Here P2P stands for peer-to-peer or person-to-person. That means there the money from one person's account, it can be sent to another person, need not be an account. That means the person can withdraw the money from ATM machine, where it will use a code of mobile number and MMID, mobile money identifier. So the person or the beneficiary will receive a code. Using that code, the person can withdraw the money from any ATM without using the ATM card. Please understand, this can be done without using the ATM card. So IMPS or immediate payment service or instant money transfer, this type of facilities can be performed using mobile number and MMID. MMID stands for mobile money identifier. Mobile money identifier. Using account number and IFS code is the second way. You must have seen the IMPS can be performed from mobile app also, where the information required is the name of the customer, account number and IFS code. So this is the second way in which IMPS can be performed. So IMPS need not necessarily need a IFS code of the branch of the receiver of the money, where P2A says peer to or person to account. So P2A stands for person to account. So which of the following is not a 24/7 fund transfer facility in India? IMPS is a 24/7 facility in India. In fact, when NEFT and RTGS were existing, they had a limitation that these two can be performed only during the banking hours. So then IMPS was introduced in 2010-11, which is a 24/7 fund transfer facility. RTGS is not a 24/7 fund transfer facility. As per RBI guideline, at present RTGS can be performed from 7 AM to 6 PM on working days. 7 AM to 6 PM on working days. Now please understand a basic difference between RTGS and NEFT. NEFT is performed in batches and RTGS is a real-time operation. That means you make the request and the money is transferred almost immediately. Now the question comes, how come an RTGS be performed at 7 AM in the morning when the bank is closed? Now please understand, there are two modes in which RTGS can be performed. One, online through internet banking facility. That is anyway available at morning 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, because to make this request of RTGS through your internet banking site, you don't need a bank branch to be operational. The second way is RTGS can be also done physically in a bank branch by filling a form and signing a check and making this order to the bank that please transfer this much of amount to this XYZ party. So there are two ways RTGS can be performed. As long as the digital RTGS is concerned, the window is 7 AM to 6 PM on working days. For UPI, no such time restrictions are there. IMPS, no such time restrictions are there. NEFT, presently it is 24/7 operation. In fact, last year 2019 IBPS clerk main exam had a question that at present NEFT is performed in how many batches. When I say how many batches, as I said, RTGS is a real-time operation. That means one request comes, it is processed immediately. Whereas in case of NEFT, these are performed in batches. A group is formed and then that group is processed. Earlier, the NEFT were performed in the batches of 1 hour. That means in 1 hour, whatever requests are coming, they are accumulated together and then they are processed. Now they are done in batches of half an hour. So if it is a 24-hour operation, 24 into 2, that makes it total 48 batches. So if you look at last year question, the answer for NEFT number of batches at present is 48. It was quite an easy question, but from current affairs. This year also it is important. So remember, in this operation, IMPS, UPI, NEFT are 24/7 fund transfer facility in India, whereas RTGS is not a 24/7 fund transfer facility in India. And IMPS can be done in two ways. One is using mobile number and MMID. Second is using account number and IFS code. There are other ways of IMPS also, but they are not very prominent. For example, using ATM card and using the last 6 digits of that ATM card, and CVV and internet banking ID. Using those things also, IMPS can be performed, but not so popular. And the specialty of IMPS is it is a specially mobile banking service. IMPS is a mobile banking service. Okay, let us move to the next question. Who among the following has recently been selected head of the Committee of Secretaries to examine the financial stress of the telecom sector and suggest measures to overcome it? We know recently this particular sector, telecom sector, is going through a lot of tough time. There are a lot of laying off of employees have also taken place. Companies like Idea, Vodafone had to merge to survive in the competition, and at present there are, you can say, there are 5 major players. We have Jio, Airtel, then we have Vodafone and Idea as merged entity, and we have this BSNL. And almost all other companies are either shut down or they are getting merged. So in this particular situation, they are going through a lot of stress, and many of these companies are yet to pay a huge chunk of amount to TRAI, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, as their dues for using the spectrum of 3G or 4G, which they were supposed to pay earlier. So this is a present scenario where the government felt a reality or need that there has to be some committee which will suggest that how this telecom sector has to be given some relaxations or some other ways in which they can revive from this particular situation. The answer for this question is Rajiv Gauba. Rajiv Gauba, if you look at Mr. Rajiv Gauba, is also the Cabinet Secretary, present Cabinet Secretary of India. Now, who is a Cabinet Secretary? Cabinet Secretary is the most senior IAS officer under the government of India. He seems to be the most senior person and the topmost position among all the IAS and the secretaries of the government of India. Presently, Rajiv Gauba is the Cabinet Secretary. There are other important designations. Sometimes people confuse. There are 3 advisors are there to the government of India. It is a standard practice throughout. We have seen there are 3 advisors are always there to the government of India. Presently, the National Security Advisor is Mr. Ajit Doval. Chief Economic Advisor is Krishnamurthy Subramaniam, and Principal Scientific Advisor is Krishnaswamy Vijay Raghavan. The 3 names are important. You can take it down. It will be there in ebook form also. It's up to you whether you want to write it or not. But please understand, this is not necessary that these 3 are only advisors. There are other advisors. However, there is a difference. These 3 are the advisor to the government of India. National Security Advisor, Chief Economic Advisor, and Principal Scientific Advisor are the advisor to the government of India. Whereas, time to time, as the Prime Minister feels that he or she needs a special advisor to himself or herself, they can appoint such a person. So Mr. P.K. Sinha, who is a retired IAS officer and the earlier cabinet secretary, Mr. P.K. Sinha, you can look at this option, is a special post has been created for him as a principal advisor to Prime Minister. So there's a difference. Principal advisor to the Prime Minister, whereas this persons are or cabinet secretary are to the government of India. This person is also an advisor. His job is to advise the government of India or Prime Minister. But cabinet secretary is somebody who is going to advise government of India as a whole and seems to be the principal advisor to the government of India. Whereas this is very specific. He has been reappointed, Mr. P.K. Sinha, one of the senior most IAS officer, who was earlier cabinet secretary, has been given a special post as principal advisor to the Prime Minister. Okay, so all these names are very, very important. Please take a note of it. Ajay Kumar, Union Defence Secretary. Mr. Ajay Kumar is Union Defence Secretary. Okay, so let's move to the next question. Okay, I missed out this Mr. Rajiv Kumar. Mr. Rajiv Kumar is the Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog. Mr. Rajiv Kumar, Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog. Okay, let us move to the next question. Which among the following institutes has recently built the first ever Indian Brain Atlas? Now, what is this first ever Indian brain? It's actually a artificial brain. But then it's on a very initial stage. The answer for this question is IIIT Hyderabad, and the further developments are there for different age groups. Also this development will be done. The name of this first ever Indian brain is called Atlas. It has been done on a lab having based on a lot of other technology. It's a combination of medical science and information technology and artificial intelligence to come up with this project Indian Brain Atlas. The answer is IIIT Hyderabad. Let us move to the next question. With which country will India conduct its first ever military exercise named Dukslik 2019? The answer is Uzbekistan. Option number 3, answer is Uzbekistan. Which Indian city has recently been listed as a member of the UN Cultural Agency UNESCO Creative Cities Network UCCN in the field of film? Which Indian city has recently been listed as a member of the UN Cultural Agency UNESCO Creative Cities Network in the field of film? I think this itself is a clue that you can guess from this that which city can be given this particular category or recognition. The answer is obviously Mumbai. Let's move to the next question. Okay, so who owned the 2019 Syed Modi International Badminton Championship in men's category? The answer for this question, if you can guess, the answer is Wang Zhuwei. Wang Zhuwei is a Taiwan shuttler who defeated Saurabh Verma of India in the final. So the runners-up is Saurabh Verma, defeated in the final Wang Zhuwei. Lin Dan is a Chinese shuttler and Victor Alexander is a Danish shuttler. In case of women's category, the champion is Carolina Marin of Spain, who owned the title. And for the male category, the answer is Wang Zhuwei. Okay, let us move to the next question. Who among the following persons has recently been elected President of the Republic of Mauritius? Who among the following person has recently been elected as the President of Republic of Mauritius? The answer is option number 4, Prithvi Raj Singh Rupan. Prithvi Raj Singh Rupan has been appointed as the President of Republic of Mauritius. If you look at the rest of the names, Henry Rajoelina is the President of Madagascar. Praveen Kumar Jagannath is the Prime Minister of Mauritius. And A.D. Boyson is the Vice President of Mauritius. And Magufuli is the President of Tanzania. John Magufuli is the President of Tanzania. So not so important as such rest of the names. This has been a recent appointment, so you should remember this name, Prithviraj Singh Rupan, the President of Mauritius. Let's move to the next question. Which among the following cricket teams has won the MCC's Christopher Martin Jenkins Spirit of Cricket Award for 2019 for their sporting conduct? We can guess. I'm sure you can guess. Answer is New Zealand. Historically, they have been one of the most gentle team, and they have number of times got this award related to the conducts. And this award is actually given by Melbourne Cricket Club. The present president is Kumar Sangakkara, the ex-cricketer of Sri Lanka national team. And this particular award is started almost some 6-7 years back to actually commemorate the founder of MCC and one of the sports journalists of BBC. And if you look at this particular award, which is given to New Zealand in 2019, is because of the kind of humility they have shown after losing the World Cup final against England by this number of boundaries hit by the team, which was very controversial, but then there was no reaction, or that was no as such huge repercussion from the New Zealand side because of their humiliating behavior and spirit of sports. This particular award has been given to New Zealand team. Let's move to the next question. With which country has India recently partnered to set up a healthcare innovation center to promote research in non-communicable diseases and help scale up India's startups in that sector? Now, mostly the diseases what we come across are of two types: communicable disease and non-communicable disease. COVID is a communicable disease. Heart attack, cancer, diabetics, these are non-communicable diseases, and mostly they are also known as lifestyle diseases. Okay, if you look at before this corona outbreak took place, the global challenge was the increase in the number of deaths and number of patients of non-communicable diseases and lifestyle diseases. World Health Organization was mostly concerned about the increase and the exponential increase in various countries in the non-communication disease or non-communicable disease or lifestyle disease. However, the recent focus has shifted. It is a different thing altogether. Now, in India, the government of India has tied up with Sweden, the government of Sweden, to develop a research facility and again to develop, come up with technologies to scale up Indian startup sector. AIIMS is also one of the very important stakeholder in this particular mission. If you look at this particular announcement was made during the visit of Swedish King Carl Gustaf and the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. When the Swedish couple visited India, jointly they have announced this particular plan, and it is now taking shape in our country. The Prime Minister of Italy is Giuseppe Conte. This name is important because when this COVID-19 pandemic broke out, if you see in the initial days, Italy was one of the most affected country, and the number of times the newspaper had featured the name of Prime Minister of Italy and the comments he has made and the kind of responses he has given. So the answer, the Prime Minister of Italy is Giuseppe Conte. Sweden, Stefan Löfven. USA, I don't need to discuss. Finland is Sanna Marin. This is not CM, it should be Prime Minister. And Germany is Chancellor Angela Merkel. This name is also important and been asked in bank exam in earlier year. Finland, Prime Minister is Sanna Marin. Let's move to the next question. This data are made available in your ebook form, so you don't need to write it down, it is there. So let's move to the next. Rajendra Chinna Virappan has recently been reappointed as MD and CEO of which of these banks? South Indian Bank, Lakshmi Vilas Bank, Catholic Syrian Bank, Karur Vysya Bank and Canara Bank. Now if you see from these options, apart from Canara Bank, all these four are old generation private bank. In some of our previous lectures, we discussed about old generation and new generation private banks. Just to have a quick recap, banks which are in existence but founded before 1991 economic reforms are old generation private banks. And in fact, most of them are found way back, in fact, before independence. If you look at some of the banks of here are even Karur Vysya Bank is a 100-year-old bank. Now, out of this, those which are formed after 1991 economic reform, that means starting from 1994-95, like ICICI Bank, SDFC Bank, UTI Bank, which later renamed as Axis Bank, then Yes Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, IndusInd Bank, they are new generation private banks. The question here is, Rajendra Chinna Virappan has recently been appointed as MD and CEO of Catholic Syrian Bank. The answer is Catholic Syrian Bank. If you go back some 4, 5 years, 6 years, there used to be questions in bank exams, particularly in clerical exam, which of the following is a PSU bank, which of the following is a clerical bank. However, this type of questions were not asked in recent days, but you never know. So just to know which bank comes under what category is something you should know in coming exams. South Indian Bank, the headquarters is in Thrissur. Mr. Salim Gangadharan is the chairman of South Indian Bank. You can take it down, headquarters Thrissur, which is also asked sometime, Salim Gangadharan. Lakshmi Vilas Bank is the headquarters in Chennai. Mr. Sri S. Sundar, MD and CEO, however, is an interim MD and CEO of Lakshmi Vilas Bank. Catholic Syrian Bank headquarters is in Thrissur. Karur Vysya Bank is in headquarters is in Karur. It's a textile based city in Tamil Nadu. CEO is Mr. P.R. Sheshadri, and Canara Bank, as I said, it is a PSU bank. Headquarters is in Bangalore. Chairman T.N. Monoharan. And MD and CEO is Lingam Venkat Prabhakar. MD and CEO is Lingam Venkat Prabhakar for Canara Bank. These names are important, so please make sure, as long as IBPS exams are concerned, they may anytime ask you this particular question. Okay, let us move to the next question. The Reserve Bank of India, RBI, has recently increased lending limit for non-banking financial company peer-to-peer lending platforms, NBFC P2P 2. Now, let's understand what is this NBFC peer-to-peer lending platform. At present, generally what we are aware of is if we need a loan, we move to banks. Now there are also unorganized sector like individual money trail lenders where we can borrow the money. Now if you look at, when we go to a bank, bank plays the role of an intermediator. The money we get is as a loan is not the money of the bank, it is rather the money of the depositor, and the depositor does not know to whom his money is lended. So bank in between works as an intermediator and earns some profit from this operation. Whereas a peer-to-peer lending is a borrowing and lending without any intermediary. But this is not something which is similar to an unorganized sector. Here there are online platforms, online marketplace, and at present this online marketplace which are participated by NBFCs is regulated by RBI. So it's like a platform where I have some capital to invest, so I give it to that platform, and that platform, from that platform, a person who is looking for a fund can borrow from as a personal loan. Remember, these are unsecured, they are not secured. So a person can borrow from that platform where the profile of the person should be available. I may know that to whom my money is going, and it may vary from case to case. So the regulation and the norms, processing and a lot of other things are quite simplified in case of this peer-to-peer lending. There are some examples are given like fairsend.com, i2ifundingindia.com. You can visit the website, you'll see the lendings are entirely different. The rate of interest may be slightly more or less, it varies to case, and the person who is investing the money may get higher rate of return. For example, at present, if a person invests in fixed deposit in any of the PSUs, the fixed deposit interest may range from 5% to 6%. Whereas if we invest in some peer-to-peer company, the rate of investment or return could be more, maybe some 12% to 25% also. But is it unsecured? Yes, it is. But then this is still, RBI started regulating this particular sector. So the security features are improving gradually. Now the limit of this type of peer-to-peer lending has been improved or increased to 50 lakhs. It has been increased to 50 lakhs. Now, what is this 50 lakhs? Earlier this was 10 lakh. That means as a borrower, the total amount of lending aggregating all such platforms should not go beyond 50 lakhs. Okay? As a borrower, a person can borrow from the first platform 10 lakhs, the second platform maybe 30 lakhs, and some other platform maybe maximum 10 lakhs. So the total borrowing exposure cannot go beyond 50 lakhs. However, the association of this type of NBFC peer-to-peer lending demanded for 1 crore, but then RBI has approved up to 50 lakhs, which they are also saying that it is good, that it will also put some impetus in this sector, and particularly in this type of COVID pandemic where people are looking for loans, and those who doesn't have any bank account or good credit rating, they can easily avail loans from this particular platforms. Let us move to the next question. Which among the following states has decided to create a new department named Foreign Cooperation for the promotion of investment, the employment of youth, and for the welfare of NRIs, non-resident Indians? So a department called Foreign Cooperation. There is a separate department under the government. The answer is Haryana. Quickly go through the name of the Chief Minister, Uttarakhand, Sri Trivendra Singh Rawat. Chief Minister of Uttarakhand. Haryana, Sri Manohar Lal. West Bengal, Srimati Mamata Banerjee. Karnataka, no, it's not Mr. Vijayan. There has been a mistake in this particular typing. The answer for this one is the Chief Minister of Karnataka is Mr. B.S. Yedurappa. This is not correct. This has actually come for Kerala. The Chief Minister of Karnataka is Mr. B.S. Yedurappa. For Karnataka is Sri Pinarayi Vijayan. Okay, let us move to the next question. Which company has the Ministry of Women and Child Development recently partnered to boost digital literacy in India? With which company has Ministry of Women and Child Development recently partnered to boost digital literacy in India? The answer is Facebook. Thank you.